1. So in the summer of 2018, a group of friends of mine invited me on a trip to Bali, Indonesia. It ended up being a trip of 6 women and 6 men, and I knew around half of the people beforehand, and I got to know the rest during the trip. We went around the island, ate great food, enjoyed the views and culture, and we were all in our early to mid-20s back then, so we would always end the night with a night out at the bar or nightclub. I believe it was the third night on the island. After the night out, we were in groups of 4 or 5. We got a cab and headed back to our villa separately, due to us not all fitting in one vehicle. I was one of the people that arrived in the villa latest, and I believe it was approximately around 2 a.m. when I arrived. My roommate and some friends decided they were going to go to bed first, but I wanted to have a cigarette prior to getting ready to pass out in my room. Before going further into the story, in order to make this story more clear to whoever is listening, I need to tell you about the layout of the villa. The villa's estate is rectangular, and when you enter you'll see an outdoor kitchen and somewhat of a living room that's outdoor, including a few couches and a TV and a statue of Buddha. Then there is a pool, which next to it has 6 glass doors that lead into 6 different rooms. So you could open your room door and take 4 steps and dive in the pool. Now the real story starts here. From the deciding to have a cigarette part. For the record, I was not too intoxicated nor too tipsy at this moment. I decided to light up a cigarette in front of my room door, and I was looking around the ambient view of the pool and the living room space. Living room space was darker than the pool. Then I saw a shape of a girl sitting on the couch, but she was looking in the opposite direction of me. Thus I was looking at the back of her head. At this point, I didn't think of anything weird, and thought it was one of the girls that stayed in the villa with me. Then I got a chill because I did not connect her hair to that of any of the girls that were in the villa. In this moment, for some stupid reason, I decided to not freak out, and felt like I wanted to show I wasn't scared of this random girl, ghost or spirit. Wasn't sure if it was a ghost or a random girl that broke in, and I decided to finish smoking the rest of the cigarette, and I threw it approximately 5 foot next to her in her direction. When I was done, bad decisions. Then I opened my room door and saw my roommate already asleep. For some reason, I was able to fall asleep quite shortly after. I don't usually get sleep paralysis, maybe once prior to this trip. I fell asleep inside a position where my face was half in the pillow and half out, an angle that I could see my roommate. When I woke up, I could not move my body. The first sense was my sight, then I realized I could not move. Then realized I felt something on my cheeks. It was black straight hair on my cheeks, and I could only move my eyeballs. This was the most chills and panic that I've ever felt in my life, and I tried to see what it was by side-balling my eyes as much as I could. Then I saw a face that was also side-balling to stare at me. I was dying inside, my heart was beating like crazy, and I think that this girl, or ghost, also knew I was pissing my pants. Then the killer act was that she almost screamed, her laugh with her mouth directly in my ears like rapidly with the highest pitch of a laugh I've ever heard. I didn't know what to do, but it was like my body was in fight or flight mode. I somehow managed to ball my fists, then the rest of my body woke up. Then I was screaming, "What the F?" and woke up my roommate and some people in the villa. There was nothing that was on top of me when I woke up. I didn't get much more sleep that night. People didn't believe what happened to me until we checked out of the villa 2 days later, and I told this story to the security guard that was in charge of the few villas around the block. He told me that across the villa, approximately a 2-way road, it had a so-called kaburban, which translates to graveyard for the locals there. Not sure if it was that or if I was just hallucinating for some reason. It's a story I still tell people and freak out over. Let me know if you guys had any similar experiences. 2. I've been stressed the past few weeks. My mind is in deep thought over what happened during winter last year. I'm no stranger to hearing or seeing ghosts. Of course, I never felt a reason to tell anyone my experiences because there's always uncertainty behind what is seen or heard, and what if? I'm from Texas. At the time, I lived inside a house that had no central cooling, with the temperature of the house being the outside temp or close to it. During last winter, it had been freezing inside. The weeks before that day, I kept hearing what sounded like someone calling my name throughout that house, whenever no one was home. My parents had just left the store for groceries. Well, I felt a little uncomfortable being alone due to hearing a voice calling my name. I thought, what's the worst that can happen? I hear my name being called. I'll go look, see nothing, and watch more TV. Simple, I thought. They left the house, and the house temperature felt extremely cold. So I laid back on the recliner. We had put on a classic movie, covered myself in a blanket while wearing pajamas and a sweater, comfortable as I could be. I remember feeling sleepy after getting comfortable. Then it happened. I heard a guy's voice call my name. I pumped myself up. I said, "Let's do this." Got up, walked around the house. It's daylight outside, by the way, snowing too, and I saw nothing like I expected. However, how could I get comfortable again knowing once I relax I would hear something? We've all seen the movies where the person relaxes and thinks, I can let my guard down, then everything goes downhill. I make a deal with myself. I'll record myself sleeping. Either nothing will happen and I'll fall asleep, or I'll finally record it to show my parents I'm not crazy. It's a win-win deal. Sadly, the outcome was what I hoped wouldn't happen. I put my phone onto the table, used for drinks near the recliner. I set it to record myself on the couch. Slowly drifted off into sleep, thinking nothing will happen while it's recording. I woke up, what seemed to be like half an hour later, to loud crying from a woman's voice. Me, being drowsy, looked around to find the source of the noise. There was a hole beside the recliner. Sounds weird, but the owner didn't lay the floorboard down correctly, and it eventually broke. We put a temporary board over the broke part, but it left a little hole because it didn't fit exactly. The crying was coming from beside me and in the exact direction of the hole. I looked directly at it, realizing what's happening, jumped straight up and backed away in shock. The sound faded. I questioned if what I just heard could have been my way of waking from a lingering dream. The only way to confirm it is to check the recording still going. I collected my phone from the table and paused the recording. Thoughts ran through my mind while getting my earphones to listen closely. 1, I'm going to hear nothing and realize it was only a lingering dream, sit back down, and laugh off my paranoia. 2, I will hear and confirm a dreading truth. I went outside. Didn't exactly feel comfortable inside anymore. Temperature was around 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Yes, I know it's probably not that cold to some, but in Texas it's normally 100 to 110 degrees. Even the power went out a few times during winter for a good part of Texas. They weren't prepared for snowy weather. I sat on the porch, headphones on, fast-forwarding the video until I saw myself wake up and rewinded a few minutes before to see the truth. My heart raced with anxiety. In the video, I slept like normal. Then a noise came into the audio. It sounded like an eerie whine that became louder until the audio started cutting in and out like distortion. In the video, I woke up to the noise and looked around with sleepy eyes before looking at the floor and jumped up. I got chills. Writing this now, and it's 4 a.m., I have goosebumps everywhere. I waited outside in the freezing cold, waiting for my parents to come home. I didn't want to go back inside. What I did next, I'll have to explain my reasoning. I've been through a lot, near-death experiences plenty, poverty, an abusive father and terminally ill mother. Yes, the parent I have is my stepfather. I calmed down and went back inside. I went to the living room where it happened and closed my eyes. My brother passed away when I was a teenager. Sometimes when I'm going through hard times, I'll speak to him as if he hears me. I said, "Brother, I don't know what to do. I'm hearing noises and it's weighing on my mind. I can't sleep or relax even in daylight. And I finally have proof it's not inside my head. Love you and miss you. I'm going to keep trying. Feeling more relaxed, I started to make a prayer. I'm Christian, but I would be lying if I said I followed my religion to every word. I'm not 100% on who or what God is or what religion. So, I pray, pouring my heart out, hoping God understands my ignorance and guides me from trouble. I said in my prayer, please give me guidance. I understand people die, and I'm not sure how death works. The crying I heard sounded like a woman in sorrow. It scared me at first. All I can do is pray, not for my own fear, but to show whatever it is guidance and love. Lead it from darkness to your light, so it ceases to suffer any longer. I took a deep breath and opened my eyes. I no longer felt worried. My heart felt at peace. I realized sometimes fear is from ignorance and not knowing how it works. I hear a scary crying and think instantly of fear and ghost videos, scary movies, and death. I never think how it must feel to be stuck to a house or feel alone in some dark place. A family member or friend, neighbor to someone at one point. Writing this now, I don't feel stressed anymore. I showed my parents the video, and of course they felt fear and weren't sure how to feel about it. I made my final decision to end this story. I decided it's better to accept what happened and move forward in life, as there's too many aspects in life to fully comprehend anything. I deleted the 37-minute video, put it behind me. It really feels good to get this off my chest. If anyone believes this or not, it's up to them. Thanks for listening. I'll go to sleep now. Have a good one. 3. This happened 6 months ago in a house I moved into with a roommate. She had lived there for a year prior, and once I moved in, we started rearranging the living room. I need to note that there were old bedroom sets in the basement from the original owners of the house, bed frames, dressers, and mirrors. Back to the living room, there was a mirror on the wall opposite the fireplace with a mirror above the mantel. The mirror opposite the fireplace came from the basement and was hung up by the girl that lived there before I moved in. So I take the mirror off the wall as we are putting our TV in that spot and prop it up against the wall perpendicular to the wall it was hung until we can figure out where to put it. This is when we started to notice the weird things happening and hadn't quite realized the mirror could be the issue. There was a cot in the basement that was set up apparently by the owner of the house, if he ever came to town. Weird in my opinion, but whatever. Well, the lights above the cot randomly stopped working, and that corner of the basement just started having an eerie vibe. I tell my roommate this and we go down to investigate. What we found scared the shit out of us. Bare footprints on the cot seemingly pacing back and forth side to side. No one in their right mind would walk barefoot down there, as it's dirty and there's been rats. We measured our feet next to the prints, and while roughly the same length, they were way too wide to be either of ours. A couple days later, I'm down in the basement doing laundry. I make my dog come down there with me because it's so creepy. He wouldn't stop staring at the corner containing the cot, and I felt I was being watched. A moment later, the lights above the washer and dryer started flickering, so I got the hell out of there. The same day, later in the afternoon, I am standing in the living room on the phone with my brother, talking about work, with my back to the mirror propped against the floor. My dog starts growling and aggressively barking. My initial thought was both mine and my roommate's dog were behind me fighting over a toy, so I snapped at them to stop. And when I turned around, it was just my dog staring into the mirror, but not looking at his reflection. He's 5 years old and has seen his reflection thousands of times. It doesn't concern him. So that freaked me out, and is when I started connecting dots. I had a betta fish in a tank on one side of the mirror, and my roommate has a cool palm tree-like plant on the other side. My fish died suddenly, and the plant wasn't doing well no matter her efforts. I have to note, I have been telling my roommate that the mirror seemed warped because I felt it looked horrible and flat when I saw myself in it walking to the room. She apparently had also noticed this. So I bring up the mirror theory to her, and she immediately grabs the mirror and puts it in our detached garage on the backyard. We both felt better about this until the next day. I went out back to smoke, and it was raining, so I opened the garage door for some shelter. A fluorescent bulb was on the floor in the middle of the garage, as though it had fallen. But it was not a place it would seemingly have landed completely unbroken. I look up, see the mirror facing me, and GTFO. I explain this to my roommate, and we immediately grab the mirror to walk it across the street to Goodwill. Super convenient in this moment. She's holding it by the wire it hung on for years, and the moment we reach the edge of the property, the wire snaps and the mirror fell to the ground without breaking. This thing did not want to leave. We get it across the street and leave it. The next day, the lights in the basement started working, and we had no other weird experiences. Four. Okay, so to preface this, I'd like to think I'm a rational guy. I believe in some New Age thought, but I was always heavily skeptic of the idea of psychics, especially when they claimed to be talking with an invisible spirit guide who was in the room guiding them. Just felt super fake to me. Anyways, to kick things off, I got into meditation a few years back and now do it every day. In doing so, faculties like my focus and imagination and creativity have really seen an upgrade, which feels great. Meeting Ben. To cut to the chase, what I think might be a spirit guide is a kid called Ben. The first time I met Ben, my self-proclaimed spirit guide, I was actually in my workplace toilet. I can't explain why it happened here, but maybe because I was completely zoned out, I don't know. I finished up and went to the sink. When I turned around, I had this very strange experience. In my mind's eye or imagination, I saw a small boy, maybe 4 years of age, stood in front of me. I described this experience as sort of daydreaming with my eyes open. It was like imagining, but very vividly. Before I could even grasp, the kid spoke with a beaming smile and said, "I'm Ben," before running over and hugging my legs. I didn't feel the hug or anything like that, but it was like I was witnessing a dream or hallucination. Ben seemed like a genuine 4-year-old kid, all smiles and curiosity. Before I could reply, he disappears from my mental image. I remember thinking, well, that was effing weird. But I left the bathroom, carried on with my day, and got distracted with daily life. Eventually, I just brushed it off as tiredness and a hectic day, causing a strong imagination. Fast forward a few days, and imaginary Ben starts showing up all over the place. Sometimes he would appear playing around me at my desk. Sometimes he'd be curious and explore new places I'm visiting. And sometimes he would try to speak with real-world people. Ben very much acts like a child. He runs around a lot. He gets scared of big dogs. And he does not like broccoli. At first, I thought I was just going out of my mind with really vivid daydreams. Or even that I might be schizophrenic. But then things got a bit more weird. Possible psychic phenomena. The first weird instance with imaginary Ben was when a woman in the office lost her ring. We were all looking around, and then suddenly Ben shows up in my mind's eye. I see him pointing at a floor in the corner. So I head over there, and sure enough, this woman's ring is there. Turned out she dropped it while going over to the bin. That night I kind of sat there on the couch amazed, trying to go over the events of what just happened. Had I seen the ring subconsciously and just projected it through Ben? I was sure I hadn't even been to that corner of the room. I thought Ben was a daydream until then, but now I was genuinely questioning my sanity. Fast forward more, and today Ben helps me find stuff all the time. If I'm looking for something in this store or I've lost something, I call upon Ben and he tries his best to find it. I'd say he has a 70% accuracy rate. When he can't find something, or if he gets it wrong, he gets really upset and disappointed. But it doesn't stop there. If I see someone who has an injury, Ben will often point to it with a scrunched up face as if to say, ouch. Many times I will find out from the person later on that they do in fact have an injury in that spot. I've had quite a few dealings with Ben, and I've kinda grown to feel responsible for him like he's my kid. He's kind of endearing and acts exactly like a child would. I've never shared this with anyone, as I know exactly how crazy it sounds. Hey, so I have an imaginary friend I daydream about regularly who can find stuff and helps me in my daily life. Oh, and by the way, he's a young child. Doesn't sound quite right. Anyways, to answer a few questions, are you schizophrenic? I got so worried about seeing Ben regularly that I had a consultation with my GP to see if I had any signs of schizophrenia. She referred me to a specialist just to be sure, as the daydreams were quite abnormal. The specialist said no schizophrenia and possibly just an overactive imagination. Do you hallucinate, Ben, or is it just your imagination? I do not hallucinate Ben in the real world. I know he's not really there. It's more like if I asked you to picture a cat in the room you were in now. With enough practice, you could develop a pretty strong imaginary image of the cat in your room. But there's nothing that physically shows. Can Ben touch stuff or interact? Ben cannot physically interact with the world. He tries occasionally, stroking pets or tugging on people's trousers, but it never works. How often do you see Ben? I see Ben probably once a week. I can sometimes call him to me in my head, or sometime he'll show up of his own accord, usually when I need him or someone else needs help. What does he look and act like? Ben has brown hair, he's missing 2 front middle teeth and a few others. He's quite shy and will often hide behind my leg when we meet new people. Having said that, he's also cheeky and loves to play like any real kid. How do you speak to Ben? All my conversations with Ben happen in my head. Much like imagining sound, I speak to Ben with my imagination. Have you ever asked Ben if he's a spirit? I don't ask Ben where he came from or where he goes when I'm not around. Whenever I bring it up, he doesn't want to talk about it. He can get grumpy and has even thrown tantrums if I've asked if he's real or alive. Do you talk regularly? Not as much as I'd like. Ben rarely shows up for chit-chat. He only sticks around for 5 minutes each time. Trying to ask him anything serious is difficult. I guess it's like trying to get any 4-year-old kid to sit still. My question. Okay. So, hopefully that cleared a few things up. Feels pretty good to actually tell someone about this, apart from my GP. My question now is, if Ben isn't a mental disorder, could he actually be a spirit guide? Or is it something more sinister? I've seen people say demons take the form of children to pretend they're innocent or whatever, and that kind of freaks me out. But as far as I can tell, Ben is genuinely a shy, often scared child. He genuinely seems to want to help, and I've never seen him do anything to cause harm. Is Ben all in my head? Or am I in contact with something else? 5. Here are a few things I've documented. This is just the start. I've had so many encounters it's not funny, and I'm continuing to document these. I hope some of you can relate. 1. One of my earliest paranormal memories. I was about 6 years old and lived in an old weatherboard house built in the 1950s. My room was at the rear of the house facing the backyard and the sleep-out part adjoining the laundry. I was having trouble sleeping because it was a warm night. My bedroom door was open and I could see into the laundry. I heard a creaking noise like floorboards shifting, so I looked up to the doorway. I thought it was my parents coming through to use the toilet or something. However, I didn't see them walk past and it was dark with a little bit of weak street lighting outside. I kept staring at the doorway because I kind of sensed someone there. I then heard a really deep male voice which said, "Tonight you will sleep on the edge of your grave." The voice came from the empty doorway. I was so scared and freaking out, I yelled, "Go away!" Then there was this deep laughing that went on for about 5 to 10 seconds. My parents had been in bed and heard me yell "go away" and came to see what was wrong. That wasn't the end of the incidents in this house. 2. The same address, a year or so later. It was daytime, my dad, mum, and I were home. My dad was outside. I was in my bedroom and my mum was in the shower. I heard a really loud thump on the roof. I got up and walked around looking at the roof, wondering what it was. It was then I heard footsteps above me. I could hear the steps moving directly above me, so I followed underneath. With each step, it was apparent it was traveling towards the bedroom where my mum was. The roof access manhole was also in the bathroom. As I got near the bathroom door, my mum came flying out with a towel wrapped around her, nearly knocking me over. She was screaming out for my dad and panicking, saying there's someone in the roof. He didn't believe her, but then I chimed in and said I'd heard it too. So he got up into the manhole and looked around, but couldn't see anything. We never heard anything up there again, and never had animals or anything on our roof or around the property. Whatever it was heavy. 3. At this same address, I can't remember my age, but I was probably around 8 years old. It was dark, and I was in my bedroom, which faced the rear yard. I had large sliding doors with curtains on the top half of the wall. The bottom half was solid fibro. I saw a light shining on the back of the curtain. I thought it was someone outside with a torch shining it on my curtain from the rear garden. It was a circular white to yellow light with well-defined edges, about 10 to 15 centimeters in diameter. It was kind of dancing around the curtain, kind of doing figure eights, some other random movements. Then all of a sudden, a second identical light appeared on the curtain, and they were both dancing around each other. I was watching them for what I'd assumed about 1 minute. Then this is where it gets weird. The lights dropped below the window and curtain and now appeared on the solid fibro wall. I couldn't make sense of what I was seeing because I knew light couldn't travel through solid objects. I thought maybe somehow the lights were actually coming from inside. I just couldn't figure it out. I couldn't tell if the lights were three-dimensional or not. All of a sudden, they just vanished. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Paranormal Stories, episode 289. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then please do give it a like and share it with at least one friend or family member. And feel free to have a look in the description where you'll find all the Hellfreezer-related links. And today we have a shout-out that goes to Reddit user Muggymane. That's the author of the first story. Thank you very much for letting us use your story, Muggymane. Okay, let's see. For those of you listening to the day it went up, hopefully we'll have a Sherlock Holmes stream tomorrow, unless there's a surprise Phasmo update. I'm hearing rumors there'll be an update by the end of the month, but that isn't set in stone. That's just when they're hoping for. They haven't actually announced it. That's if you care about Phasmophobia. I seem to care about it a lot. I seem to have played more of it than any other game. Yep. Certainly got my money's worth out of that one. And before we go on, we have a birthday shout-out to give to John. Their birthday is actually the 21st, but they're a paranormal fan, so we'll do it in paranormal. Okay, let's see. They don't say how old they are, but we shan't probe. Anyway, John, I hope you have a very happy birthday. And let's see. As you're being sneaky and we're celebrating it a couple of days early, then you can celebrate right through to the 21st of September, but not a day after that. Do you understand? Come 11:59 on the 21st of September, you have to stop celebrating. Right, now, before we go, I'm going to sing Happy Birthday, and then we'll have a question of the day. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear John. Happy birthday to you. Alrighty. Right, let's see. Before we go, let's move along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, what is something you didn't pay a lot of money for that you have found infinitely valuable and you would probably have happily paid double or even more because it's just been so useful to you and you've gotten more of your money's worth out of it? I mentioned Phasmophobia there, right? So I've definitely gotten more than my money's worth out of that game. But also, a few years back, I bought an electric can opener, right? I'd actually bought it for my mother. It was a period where she'd actually slipped coming down the stairs. Some silly person came to the door as she was coming down the stairs, startled her, and she slipped and broke her arm. That was a nice call to get when I was at work. But well, we don't need to go into that, but still, oh, my mom broke her arm. What? Oh, anyway. Yeah, so as part of her Christmas that year, I got her a ceiling fan because needed a new one, which is still working. Could do with a bit of TLC, but it still works. The actual fan and light part works. And I got her the light switch to go with the ceiling fan to kind of match a silver light switch, which again is still working. And there was a little money left over in what I was planning to spend, so there was this Argos, not Asda, I was going to say Asda, this Argos brand cheap little can opener. It was about £6 electric can opener. I thought, you know what, that'd be handy for her when I'm not home to open things for her. And so I got that, and well, that I bought in, I want to say 2008, and I've had it ever since, and it's still working perfectly. So that was certainly a great purchase. So let me know what some of your favorite and most valuable purchases are that were more than worth the money. Please leave your answers in a comment below. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.